Remember the madness?
And in one of the unlikeliest upsets in the history of college basketball.
It's back.
Bob, they're covered. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Plus the foul.
The drama.
Technical foul on Michigan.
The action.
Cinderella wears the glass slipper.
They are the national champions.
The emotion. But not the usual chalk. So erase all thoughts of just filling in big names.
Garza with a putback. Corey Kispert from deep. Isaiah Lippert.
This year, from first round to Final Four, more than pedigree must be considered.
Holy mackerel! Are you kidding me?
Oh, baby, up and away. Slam Dunk City.
There's a new list of top teams in the season of change. Once the bracket is drawn, it'll take some chalk of a different color to fill it out. Welcome
Do they have 6 more in them?
to the NCAA tournament.
That's right, we lit. March is the very best month of the year. Don't at me. That's just what I
just
think.
got chills. No joke. I'm not messing
See?
around.
See?
Like, this
You
is the
agree?
best time of the year.
You
We missed it
agree?
last year. Let's
You
go.
agree? Exactly. It's
I
been
know.
like 2 years now. So welcome into Bracketology, connected by Xfinity Wi-Fi. I'm Christine Williamson. This is Dalen Cuff, and we now know the 68 teams that will be going head-to-head next week. You looked at the bracket. What stood out to you?
What stood out to me? That's a good question. I think the dominance, obviously, the Big Ten throughout the course of the year, they get 9 bids, and we kind of expected that. But the ACC getting 7 teams in, but nobody above a 3 seed, that hasn't happened in about 30 years, 3 seed or above. So I think that you're going to see more power conference teams in that 10, 11, 9 line than sometimes you may have seen, and playing other power conference teams in that 7, 8, 9 range. So I think it'll be interesting. I think no doubt about it. We're excited about it. And obviously, with Gonzaga having a chance to go undefeated, that remains a great storyline.
That is the first time since 2015 that that's happened, which is a pretty big deal. So when you look at the 1 seeds, does that make sense to you? Is that how you feel like it should go?
100%. I thought that Gonzaga obviously is in there. I think Baylor, I don't care that they stumbled the Big 12 tournament, their body of work and how dominant they were prior to the COVID pause. I think they're almost back to where they should be in terms of COVID, in terms of getting everybody back healthy and playing on the same page. They're almost where they were before. Illinois has been the best team in the country in terms of their form as of late. So no doubt, no question about that. And Michigan, despite their late wobbles, again, it's the body of work through the course of the year. Isaiah Livers being out, though, is really, really important for that team. What he does with his length and versatility on both ends, he can knock down shots at 40+% three-point shooter, helps him defensively. He's a great communicator, has phenomenal intangibles. He's an experienced guy. So him not being in that lineup, it's not the reason they didn't win against Ohio State, but it's a critical absence. So I agree with them being a 1 seed, but they may be the first 1 seed out if he can't come back with that stress injury.
Wow. All right. So we are not the only 2 that are on this show. We're holding it down in Bristol, but we got 2 guys that are in Las Vegas. The city, what is it called? Sin City. I almost said the city of love. That's absolutely not Las Vegas.
Paris? Is that Paris? There's the tower.
Hey, perfect timing. We got Joe Fortenbaugh and Tyler Fulghum holding it down in Vegas. Guys, when you looked at the bracket, what stood out to you?
I'll defer to my man, Tyler Fulghum over here, but I will start by saying it's great to be doing this with you guys. Unseasonably cool here in Las Vegas over the last week.
Oh,
although
wow.
with people coming into town.
It's like 12 degrees
Okay,
outside.
but
And
it was warm earlier this week.
Not a direct shot at Bristol. Don't take everything personally.
How rude.
What stood out to you, dude?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me, obviously, some of the teams that are not in this tournament, which allows some smaller schools to get with at-large bids. You know, there's no Duke, there's no Kentucky in here. We know Duke now has turned down an NIT bid as well. But I always look to see which of these top teams on the top 3 lines are teams that could get upset. Which team that's ranked 13 or seeded 13, 14, 15 could win a couple of games and be a Cinderella of sorts.
I had 2 things that jumped out at me. Number one, initially, it was the idea that I thought Gonzaga was going to have the toughest bracket based on some of the teams. That's no longer the case. I think it's going to be Baylor that's going to have the toughest challenge of any one getting to the Final Four. 2 key reasons. One, that second matchup, they're going to get the winner of UNC Wisconsin. North Carolina has gotten up for some very big games this season. I think that could be a threat. And I think Ohio State is the best of the 2 seeds in the entire tournament. So right there out of the gate, I think Baylor is the tough one. Number 2, for people who have filled brackets out for years, we all know it's about pens and highlighters, pens and highlighters. Pens when you're wrong, highlighters when you're right. I am going to be all Penn in the Michigan bracket. I think the Michigan quadrant is going to be that mess where you've got everything X'd out, highlighters in the weirdest of places. That's what stood out to me, guys. I think the Michigan quadrant is going to be the one that's messy.
All right, well, now that we've gotten that out of the way, the best part of March Madness, in my opinion, is the upsets. When teams can just upset people. We saw a 16 beat a 1 2 years ago. It was freaking amazing. So it's time now for our matchups Masfina presented by Corona Extra. We're going to talk about some of the matchups where we feel like we can get an upset. And we're going to start with, I know that, Dalen, you were not here to pick these games, so you might not agree
co-signing these,
with
by the
all
way.
of them. But I'm going to give you the first one because I know that you feel very strongly about one of them. It's not this one. 12 seed Georgetown versus number 5 Colorado. Do you feel like that can be an upset?
That one's possible. I will say I would love a Corona right now, by the way. So that's a response. I need like
You've
2
had
or 3 of them.
a very long day.
A long couple days, which is great.
Yes,
It's the best time of
exactly.
year, but we're working here. I think Georgetown I could pull it off. They've obviously played well through the Big East tournament, and they've stopped turning the ball over. They do have some talented players that can make shots. But I think we're kind of overlooking Colorado. And I think because people know Georgetown, recognize the brand, people just you may not see Colorado very much. You may not say it up in the Thursday night Pac-12 games.
Yeah.
McKinley Wright's one of the best guards in the country, and I think they have a very good defensive team, very veteran team, despite what Georgetown brings to the table. They did not perform well for the rest of this year. And if they go back to turning it over at 23% of their possessions almost, which is bottom 50 in the nation, you ain't going to beat Colorado. So I think it's a trendy pick. It could happen if they play the way they did in the last week. But if they go back to the way they looked the prior 3 months, they're not going to beat Colorado. So I think it's a trendy pick. I don't particularly love it for my bracket, but I understand it.
So it's trendy. Joe, Tyler, what do you guys think about this matchup?
So a lot of the focus here with Georgetown getting the upset would be the fact that Georgetown has been red hot coming into the tournament. I'm actually looking the other way. Colorado is the tale of two teams, in my opinion. When they play at home at altitude, they have a huge advantage. Their home distinction this year has been fantastic, but when they've gone out on the road, we've seen them lose several games. Oregon, Cal, Utah, Washington. Georgetown, like we said, coming in hot. They can knock down the three. They're strong defensively.
Right.
That's the problem with me. Once we get to a neutral court, I don't know if I can trust Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado has lost just twice since January 30th, Joe, but they don't have any good major non-conference wins. The Pac-12 schedule a little bit softer. It's not an ACC schedule. It wasn't a Big 12 schedule they had to run through. So you make a good point about when you kind of look at this. Can Georgetown pull off the upset? Well, their form as of late, even though they were 9-12 in the regular season, they ran through that Big East with those wins over Creighton and Villanova, and you have them now match up with the Colorado team that, okay, only 2 losses since January 30th, but they don't have that home court advantage. They don't have that altitude advantage. Are they really as good as their record, or do you rely on the good form of Georgetown coming in hot off winning the Big East?
Well,
Right.
we're going to act like Colorado didn't win 7 of 8, though, guys. We're just going to forget they won 7 of 8. That's not okay. That's not important. I do understand.
Some of the people we know right down the street really like them as a big, you-know-what, taking on Oregon State. That game didn't go too well. Not in good form in that Pac-12 championship game.
I'm well aware of that. That was not a good showing. And you're right. You did point out the Cal loss in particular and the Washington loss. Those are ones. That's why they didn't win the Pac-12, because they couldn't be consistent with teams they're supposed to beat. That, I think, has changed in the last 4 or 5 weeks. They've been better. And again, McKinley Wright, guard play matters in March. He's one of the top 5 point guards in the nation in terms of scoring and assisting himself. He's great.
All right, let's go to another 12 seed versus a 5 seed. Winthrop versus Villanova. How do you feel about that matchup? Can Winthrop get the upset?
They could. The thing that's interesting about this is obviously Villanova's playing without Colin Gillespie, and he's one of the top 5 point guards in the country as well.
Exactly.
But he goes out, he's done for the year. That's a humongous deal. Don't get me wrong. They're trying to figure out how to play without him. And we lose a guy they put him in the post sometimes as a point guard, play through him there. He obviously facilitates in the perimeter, takes and makes big shots for them. But from Winthrop's perspective, they love to play at pace. And the thing about Nova, they always get their pace, which is slow. They're going to grind this thing down. That's why they're pretty good in March is a half-court game. Now, their margin for error isn't great, but Winthrop needs to play up and down and play really fast to get the game at their pace. I think that's what they're going to struggle with, is they got to guard this thing in the half court. DJ Burns is a good player, the transfer from Tennessee, so they got a body inside they can bang. But the versatility, the size, and the length of Villanova's forwards, primarily Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who's probably the top 15 players in the country, Jermaine Samuels, Justin Moore, one of their shooting guards, is really good. I think Villanova wins this game again. I think Winthrop's a very trendy pick, and I think they're going to give them a challenge.
Yeah.
But that clash of styles, if they have to grind down and play in a half-court game with a high major team, you got to be ultra efficient. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it.
Joe, Tyler, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I like the 12 seed in this matchup. Winthrop, I think, is a live potential for upset here over Villanova. We know that the Wildcats missing Connor Gillespie. That's obviously a big deal. A name that many people may not know, Chandler Vaudrin of Winthrop. He's a guy who's had 3 triple-doubles this year, Joe. He's got 3 triple-doubles. He averages 12 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 1.3 steals, knocks down almost 40% of his triples as well. He is one of those guys at a smaller school right now who, if Winthrop wins this game, advances to the next weekend, he can make a name for himself, one of those kind of March heroes, because he has the game to do it. He could very easily be the best player on the floor in this matchup with his all-around game. That's why I think Winthrop's live as an underdog here is potentially getting an upset over Villanova as a 12-5, and we often see that in the first round.
Not a whole lot to add. I think you guys hit the nail right on the head with the way you laid it out. The key is the Gillespie injury, and since that's happened, Villanova has been in very poor form. Losses to both Providence and Georgetown, and they didn't look all that sharp. Maybe Jay Wright has enough time between now and this game to get these guys back on track, but the poor form, it feels like the injury sucked the life out of the Wildcats, Christine.
I would also like to say that the Eagles, they only have one loss. They own the most efficient offense and defense in the Big South. All right, third matchup, an 11 seed Syracuse versus 16. I'm already laughing about this. Versus 16 San Diego State. I'm going to toss this one out to Vegas first because I already know how Dalen feels about this one. So Joe and Tyler, you guys take this one to start.
Just about matchup. Real simple, just about matchup here. San Diego State loves the three-pointer. Syracuse is a good defensive team when it comes to defending the three-pointer. The fact that this stunk where Syracuse got seeded, the fact that they didn't even have to go through a play-in game. They just automatically get San Diego State. I love the setup on behalf of the committee. Conspiracy theory is what comes into my mind.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot for Jim Boeheim to be in. I think Jim Boeheim is loving the fact that they have been put against this 6 seed that could have been a 4, maybe a 3, a team that was so good in conference, has won 14 in a row. They shoot better than 40% from downtown. Boeheim is going to love selling to his players when they practice all week long. No one believes you can beat this team. They're the better team. Even though they're the smaller team, they knock down 40% of threes. That's how you beat the 2-3 zone. They have the shooters to bust it. And we're poor old Syracuse as the underdog here. I think Boeheim's going to love that. I think he's going to get a great performance out of his team. So the fact it's kind of situational why I think Syracuse can upset San Diego State in that matchup there. Because Boeheim obviously is a Hall of Fame coach. We know that. And Syracuse has a style that works well in these tournament environments.
Dalen, we know you agree, so Christine, we can just move on to the next game.
You guys laid it all. I couldn't say anything. I can't add anything. You guys crushed it.
Dalen, your
I will say, let's just start here. I was just talking to Jim Boeheim on the show I was on prior to this. He obviously said he thought they were 3 or 4 seed. But what he said, he thought they were going to end up being in the play-in game probably. And he actually would have maybe liked it given the draw. He goes, if you give me the draw, I might have taken the play-in game because in 2016 when they did that, they went up going to the Sweet 16. He kind of liked that, get one game going, and maybe you don't have a draw against a team like San Diego State out of the gate. The thing the San Diego State does, though, you guys mentioned the 3-ball. That's really not what they're about. Defensively, they're top 10 in the nation in defensive efficiency. They make every single possession an absolute battle. They're going to get up in you. Matt Mitchell, Terrell Gomez, Nathan Mensah on the interior. They make every play hard, and they're going to grind you down and make it a difficult game. The problem with Syracuse is they're much more of a finesse team. Buddy Boeheim likes to get space. When he has space, he's really, really good, one of the best shooters in the country. When Quincy Guerrier can operate in the interior in space, he's really good. You can keep running down the list. They've had freshmen play better, but they are not a physical, tough team that San Diego State's going to bring that fight to them. Also, the pieces that San Diego State has in terms of the way to break down that zone, you want to get it in the high post and be able to play through that. They have a number of guys, whether it's Matt Mitchell or Gomez, to come to Jordan Shackle, to come in there and play in the middle of that zone and play make out of it and score out of it. And that zone is not what it used to be. Those dudes are not 6'8" pros in the front with a long wingspan.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same anymore. It is not a vaunted 2-3 zone the last couple years. You can handle that thing. It's not as crazy to see. I think San Diego State should be a 4 seed, maybe a 5 seed. I think they might be able to beat WVU and get to the Sweet 16. So to say that they're an upset, I couldn't disagree more.
Okay.
But Syracuse has burst my bubble over and over again, so I'm just going to let that go.
I was going to say, what can Syracuse do to beat San Diego State?
If they do get hot and they're making a lot of tough shots, that can do it. If San Diego State plays on their heels, if you don't adjust and go attack that zone, which we've seen teams, whether it was UVA last month, attack the zone and just carve it up. Then we saw them play a couple days ago, and UVA was much less aggressive. They were struggling. They tried to change how they got the ball in the high post, and that became a game. And UVA had won on a buzzer beater through Reese Beekman before they got their COVID pause situation. So they can win the game, don't get me wrong. I just think this matchup actually is not good for them based on the personnel of San Diego State and how San Diego State guards the heck out of you. And the form they're playing in, if Matt Mitchell wouldn't have got hurt in the middle of January when they lost Utah State, they would have won 21 in a row.
Yeah.
Like the only reason they won those games is Mitchell was hurt in the first one, and they couldn't play the second one because they played back-to-back nights almost.
So just so you know, Dalen is not arguing with you. He is disagreeing with you guys.
Yes. I don't embrace debate, guys. I just disagree.
Argue, he doesn't debate.
Discourse is what our country needs. A little discourse here, boys.
Okay, let's go to the next matchup. Number 3, Kansas versus 14 seed Eastern Washington. You guys, I'm going to let you take this one. What do you feel about this matchup?
Well, first and foremost, my analysis when it comes to this matchup starts here with this caveat. I went to University of Missouri at Columbia, Missouri Tigers. As you know, we don't look too kindly to that other state to the west.
That's how it works.
That's how we don't like that other squad to the west. Now, I will say, I hope that David McCormick is healthy. I hope that everything. But you know what? If they're missing their second leading scorer, that could lead to a potential upset for an Eastern Washington team that has a duo in Kim Aiken and Tanner Groves that average almost 30 points and almost 17 rebounds per game. And what you need sometimes in March is good clutch free throw shooting. And Eastern Washington, I found out, Joe, Dalen, Christine, they shot 79% from the free throw line this year. They were one of the top 10 free throw shooting teams in the country. So if this is a close game down the stretch, and you need those crucial buckets, front ends of 1-and-1, one of the best free throw shooting teams in the nation is Eastern Washington. I think that makes them dangerous for KU, especially if McCormick can't go.
40 minutes. 40-minute game, you get hot or the opponent gets cold, it can swing on you in a hurry, and that's exactly what we saw in the Pac-12 semifinal between Oregon State and Oregon. Eastern Washington isn't just a fantastic free throw shooting team. They can knock down the long ball as well. And this Kansas team is not only dealing with the COVID situation, they've had the layoff. We saw what the layoff did to Louisville. They had too much time off. They played one game in 10 days, and then immediately got rocked when they got into the ACC tournament. Kansas this year on the road, big struggles. Okie State, Oklahoma, Baylor, Tennessee, West Virginia, Texas, all teams that are better than Eastern Washington. I agree. But I always look in this tournament every single year, teams that succeed on the road, in my opinion, have a better chance because on a neutral court, anything can happen. You don't have that home court advantage. And in this matchup, Kansas has shown me this year they have struggled when they've gone out on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting matchup for the pace again. Eastern Washington wants to blow the ball up and down the court. I think what people need to realize in this year where you didn't have a chance to play a lot of non-conference high major teams, Eastern Washington did. They tested themselves. They played Washington State. They lost. Washington State's not a very good Pac-12 team. Shout out to Kyle Smith. Love you, my man, but you guys are building the program. Arizona, they lost in a tight one there. Oregon, they got blown out. So they got to run it against some high major teams, which helped you get your feet under them. Like Winthrop didn't get to do that. I think this helps you kind of understand where you're at. But if McCormick doesn't play, that is the huge X factor. I think Kansas is the biggest X factor right now just on my bracket because I don't know what to do with them. Like if they were all healthy, the way they were playing, especially defensively, they've changed the way they play ball screens. They've been keeping people on one side of the court, contesting a lot of shots, making it really hard, cleaning up their glass, and that helps their offense when they can play in front of the other team's defense and play in a little bit of transition. And McCormick has been an absolute beast. He's been their leading scorer when they've been on this run in the last 5 weeks or so since they've turned it around. So to not have him is a massive wild card. So yeah, Eastern Washington can get it done. I think I'm still picking KU because even if McCormick is not fully healthy, defensively, I do think this is a real step up in class for Eastern Washington to be able to score. And again, when you've got to play in a half-court game, it's easy to get pace and tempo when you can dominate against major teams. And you can give it to Tanner Groves, the interior at 6'9", and he can bang and dominate guys. That's not the same when you go against high major opponents. When you're looking at a like-minded guy, like by physically, and maybe physically superior to you, it's a little different.
All right. Now that we've gotten the upsets out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty. This is the part where you guys help me fill out my bracket because I hate filling out brackets. I hate taking L's.
What's
and I feel like
about it? Let's just start firing away.
I have to do like 8 different brackets to make sure that at least one of them is good.
You got to hedge your bets. The boys know about that. Hedge the bets.
That's true. Okay, so we're going to start in the West, and then we're going to look at a few matchups so that we can kind of go through the whole entire bracket and then end up on a champion. Let's start with 8-seed Oklahoma versus 9-seed Missouri. Dalen, who do you have in this matchup?
Well, let's go. We got to go to the alum. Let's go to Tyler first. Tyler, fire away, man.
Well, again, I'm probably going to have a little bit of a biased take here.
Stop traffic.
So Mizzou goes on.
Move them on.
I do think it's a really good matchup, though. When you have Austin Reeves and Drew Smith, you got 2 lead guards who can dominate a good 94-foot game. I do think it's a good matchup between these two teams because Mizzou has shown this year they can beat Illinois, they can beat Villanova, they can beat Oregon. They've also kind of struggled a little bit down the stretch of the SEC.
A little bit down the stretch.
Just so what Missouri team are you going to get here? If you get the best version, they can beat Oklahoma, but with Manick, with Reeves, here's what I'm going to do, as Dalen said. I'm going to emotionally hedge, okay? So when it comes to filling out my bracket, I'm going to put Oklahoma going through against Missouri. And if I lose that, fine, no big deal. Mizzou wins the game and they get to move on. I don't have a backup bracket with Mizzou going at least to the Sweet 16. But the official bracket that I do here for ESPN, I'll have Oklahoma winning. Because if I'm wrong about that, at least I'm wrong for a reason that makes me happy.
So to be clear, the advice to the millions of people watching is to emotionally hedge based on your specific experience in life. I'm with you. I will take Oklahoma.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Both teams are limping in to the madness right now, all right? They both be struggling down the stretch. Both play good defense, but Oklahoma has the advantage on offense, especially when it comes to the three-pointer and free throws. And being in the Big 12, I'd say they're a little bit more battle-tested than Missouri, but not by much because Missouri's been through a lot this year as well. Edge to Oklahoma. How do you guys see it?
Yeah, that's a good point, Joe. And it's interesting how much both these teams are struggling. Oklahoma's lost 5 of 6. I think Missouri's lost 6 of 9. And if you rewind, I think, to when they released these, the committee released their first 16 about a month and change ago, I believe both these teams were in the top 16, or Oklahoma's right on the fringe getting into it. Very different now to be an 8-9 game. And you've got very like-minded opponents and like skill-wise. I do think I'm going to go with Oklahoma. I think Austin Reeves has a few more offensive pieces around him. Harkless, Davion Harmon. They are a good offensive team that played really good teams in the Big 12. And it did struggle again with Kansas State down the stretch, too, which is not a good team. But Missouri can go through these long stretches of not scoring the ball. We saw it in their loss in the SEC tournament. We see it almost every game, 4, 5, 6 minutes. Yeah. They are a defensive-minded team, but when they can't score and Jeremiah Tillman's not got it going inside, and the 3 Smith brothers, not brothers, but the 3 Smiths aren't doing their thing, they can really struggle. So I will take Oklahoma in this game, but I do think it's going to be pretty much a coin flip.
So we have Oklahoma going on to the second round, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing.
Move that on.
Boom.
Okay, next up.
Wait, is your thing working? Can I get my bracket back? I'm flying blind over here.
By the way, Dalen's handwriting is very questionable.
It's not questionable, folks. My handwriting is atrocious.
I discovered that today. It is bad.
My dad used to make me sit there like I'm 7 years old and write, and then like try to clean it up. I think out of spite, as I got older, I just went back to being a total
Never
disaster.
in my life. He handed it to me, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Okay. Let's go on to the second matchup. Let's go with Creighton, who obviously won the Big East, versus USCB. Who do you have in that matchup?
UC Santa Barbara is an interesting team, and I think obviously Creighton they got boat raced by Georgetown, and I think everybody was completely shocked by that. And they've got obviously their issues with Greg McDermott coming back into the fold, and what's going on in that locker room. I still like all their pieces so much, because I just want offense.
Yeah.
I couldn't guard a chair. I just want to chuck some threes. That's what I wanted to do. And they do that quite well. Couldn't guard a chair. I probably would have played more minutes if I did. But I think that they're a really good offensive team and a gifted offensive team. But UCSB is interesting just because their ability to play with teams above their pay grade, if you will. They've got the player of the year in the conference. Corey McLaughlin is really talented. They don't play a fast tempo. They're good at playing slower. They're a really good passing team, high assist rate, low turnover rate, and their experience. Experience is really important this part of the year. So really like that. They have those pieces. This could be a 12-5 upset if Creighton shows anything like the form we saw in the Big East final. Yeah. But I know what those guys are capable of. Marcus Zagorowski is one of the best point guards in the country. They got 5 dudes that can dribble, pass, and shoot. People are like, that's basketball. No, 99.9% of teams don't have 5 guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. They got dudes on this team. Can they put it together at the right time is the question. They were looking good before that debacle against Georgetown. I think they get back to that form and edge. UCSB is a very talented team.
Tyler, Joe, who you got in this matchup?
Yeah, I lean Creighton, but I do think UCSB is one of those 12 teams that if they got a different draw with the 5, I'd love them as a 12/5 upset. As Dalen pointed out there, UCSB, when you look into the metrics, I mean, they don't have weaknesses. They're top 25 in both offensive and defensive rating. As he said, they don't turn the ball over. They're a team that doesn't beat themselves, and that's what I think Dalen's pointing out to, Joe, is that they can go up in weight class and hold their own against anyone. So I don't think it's quite a coin flip here. I think it's 55-45. But UCSB, when I was researching this bracket, was one of the teams that caught my eye, and I go, damn, they're a really, really good team, balanced, no weaknesses, and wouldn't be shocked at all if they knock off Creighton.
They're coming into this in form as well. They've won 18 of 19 games. They grind you down with slow tempo. I find myself liking Creighton in this spot, though. And it's not by much, but ultimately, I think it's a wake-up call what they went through in the Big East tournament, losing to Georgetown in the fashion in which they did. Dalen mentioned that right off the top. They've lost 3 of their last 6. 2 of the wins in that stretch came against Butler, who's not a very good team this year. So there's a lot to be concerned with here. I think this is going to be a very trendy 12/5, but I will side with the 5.
So you think it's going to be kind of a public 12-5 upset?
Like the public dog situation.
Yeah, the public dog. All right, that puts me over the top. I'm all in on UCSB right now. All in on UCSB after that, Brother Joe.
I think you got 2-1 Creighton there, I think.
So So we're going UCSB on this one.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
I was on Creighton, but I'm going to go with
Creighton and Joe's on
UCSB
Creighton.
now. I guess you guys got the tiebreaker.
Don't
That's
let
Creighton.
Okay,
the
let's go
Missouri
Creighton. Let's go
mustard
Creighton.
pants blind you. We're
All
going
right.
with Creighton.
I guess we can all agree that the Zags are going to win their first round matchup, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Virginia, Ohio? Just quickly, who do we feel like wins that one?
I think UVA wins if they play. That's the big question. They went on a pause.
true.
We'll see who's available and whatnot. But Jason Preston from Ohio is one of the best lead guards in the country. Ball screen defense important. I think UVA gets it done, though, if they're good.
All right. Okay, now we're in the round of 32. We got the Zags versus Oklahoma, Creighton versus Virginia. Who do we feel like wins Zags, Oklahoma? I mean, I feel like that's a very easy answer.
It's
but
not
I'm gonna,
easy.
I'm going to
Oklahoma's
toss it over
but
to
I'm
you.
going Zags. We're
Okay.
going to keep it simple, keep it quick. They're best team we've seen offensively, best team we've seen historically in quite some time. Zags.
Okay. You guys agree?
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
If we start talking about Gonzaga going down, it's not going to happen for a few more minutes in this conversation.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I kind of have the floor for the Zags in this tournament as the Elite Eight. I think they, at least make it to the Elite Eight, and then we can go from there if they'll get knocked off. But that's kind of my floor for them, one of the final 8 teams.
They got a great draw. I mean, they are the 1 overall seed, but their draw
Yeah.
is good.
They're also undefeated. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so how do we feel about Creighton, Virginia?
Dalen, you made a great point earlier. I mean, if Virginia's going to play and they're going to come into this situation, then we're in a spot where I'd want to side with Virginia as well because I'm not that confident in Creighton. That's the situation. I'm more confident in Virginia getting to this spot, so that would be the edge there with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I would. I think if Creighton does come out and they play well, they kind of rally around their coach McDermott there and have purpose, so to speak, in this tournament. They can go a long way. They're a good team, obviously, as Dalen was pointing out. A lot of key players on that team that are some of the best in the conference, some of the best in the country. But to me, I wonder what's going on in that locker room. I do think that there's a little bit of a concern with that when they play in the first round. But if they get out, they're a team that can go deep because of how well-rounded they are. Pardon me. So I'd probably take them over UVA there because there's so many questions right now about UVA and if they're even going to be in the tournament. Same can be said for Kansas as well. We didn't mention that earlier.
And Joe makes a great point just in terms of, if you're filling out your bracket, folks, at times when you think about, all right, if this team could get upset, if you have them winning not 1 but then 2 games, that sometimes is questionable. Sometimes should be your determining factor. But remember, with UVA, if they can't go or Kansas can't go, it's the first team that's replacement team slotted into that spot.
Right.
So Louisville could be coming in there.
Oh, wow.
And Louisville they're in the same conference, and we just saw UVA destroy Louisville about a week and a half ago. Just totally locked them down. They're different teams of different class. Chris Matt's done a great job, but bear in mind, if that happens, that would be the scenario. So I still think I'm going to take Creighton over UVA if they play. I'm going to go offense over the defense, but bear in mind, UVA's defense this year, not what it is in terms of brand. It's outside the top 30 in defense efficiency. It hasn't been that since 2011.
Yeah, and it's actually so crazy to still say that they are the defending champions.
Yeah, they are.
Because it has been so long since we had March Madness. Okay, let's go on to the East. We got BYU versus Michigan State or UCLA. Who do you have in that one?
Michigan State severely underseeded. I'm assuming they're going to beat Wichita State. I thought they had 6 quad 1 wins, 5 of them in the last 3 or 4 weeks. They beat 3 number 1 seeds in this tournament in the last 3 weeks, and they get a play-in game. That was surprising. Syracuse should be in the play-in game. Michigan State should not. But Michigan State's where they are. I think they beat Wichita State. I think they beat BYU despite Matt Harms and Alex Barcelo and the talent they have with the Cougars. Give me the Sparty.
Guys, what do you think?
Same thing here. I don't think BYU should be a 6 seed. They're sitting on the 6 line, and Georgia Tech, who won the ACC, is sitting on the 9 line. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think the mistake there was valuing BYU higher than a team like Georgia Tech. BYU's had a good season.
Yep.
A lot of the metrics line up, but when we've asked them to step up in class, which has come against Gonzaga, we've seen what's happened every single time. Now, granted, it's Gonzaga. A lot of people have had trouble with the Zags this year, but ultimately, BYU's another one of those teams. They benefit from altitude when they play at home, and you wonder what's going to happen when they're on a neutral surface in Indiana facing everybody else the exact same way. So I would be more inclined to take whoever wins the play-in to take out BYU, and that's going to be Michigan State.
Yeah, similarly, I'm in agreement with you guys. I do think Michigan State right now, as Dalen has pointed out, oftentimes when you're looking at these games and trying to figure it out, there's multiple things you consider. The entire resume over the course of the year. There's also form. Maybe a team was great at the beginning half of the year and a player got injured, something happened that changed the trajectory of that season, and their overall resume looks great, but the last 2 or 3 weeks gives you a better example of what they truly are.
Like Missouri, like team.
Michigan State would be the antithesis of my Missouri Tigers. They looked awful at the beginning of the year. They've had all kinds of issues, but as Dalen has pointed out, their resume over the past 3-4 weeks is as good as anyone in the entire country. So I think you can, if they get out of that play-in game, I like Michigan State to probably make a deep run in this tournament with Tom Izzo at the helm. We know what he does.
Let's not go nuts. We'll just win the one games.
Let's not go crazy.
Let's not go nuts.
All right, let's go to the next matchup. The 7-seed Yukon versus 10-seed Maryland. Yukon has Bouknight back and healthy, so how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, Bouknight is the difference maker. When he's on that team, he can go for 40. He's a lottery pick, folks. He's one of the best guards in the country. He will be a lottery pick come up here in April or in June, excuse me. But Maryland's key is their guards too. Eric Ayala and Aaron Wiggins are really good guards. They have some really good wins, especially away from home. It's been really interesting watching the Terps here in that brutal Big Ten, going and winning it in Illinois and other places. They've had some really good wins. Wisconsin. So in this game, I think I'm going upset. This will be one of the upsets I pick. I'll take Maryland in a team that has some versatility offensively, but still reliant on their guards. And Yukon, as tough as they are, as much as they guard you, they're a little bit more heavily reliant on Bouknight to produce. I know RJ Cole's been better as of late, but I'm going to go with Terps here in a little upset.
Okay, guys, what do you think?
I'm going to be on the other side of this one. I'll take Yukon. Maryland dropped 3 of 4 coming into the tournament. Their recent wins are against average to below average teams at best. The key here for me is that Maryland generates a lot of its offense via the three-pointer, which is something Yukon defends very, very well.
Yeah, and when I have games like this that are coin flip, these 8-9, these 7-10 matchups where, it's probably, the difference between a point or two, I rely on the team that has the best player. And as Dalen pointed out there, you got Bouknight, who is a potential lottery pick, a guy who can get you 30, 35 on a given night, a guy who's not just a scorer, pulls down almost 6 rebounds a game as well. So he can impose his will on the game, not just in the scoring column. He's going to be the best player on the floor. So in a game I think is kind of a toss-up, I'll say that Yukon, I'll agree with you, Joe, wins this game because Bouknight has a big game.
All right, so we got Yukon moving on. Next up, LSU versus St. Bonaventure. This is an 8-seed versus a 9-seed. How do you feel about this one?
This is probably the most interesting game in terms of what the strengths are. LSU is one of the most dynamic offenses in the country, if not the most. They got Cam Thomas is the best scoring freshman in the country. Javonte Smart will go get you buckets in key times all the time. Trenton Wofford had a great game today. They lost to Alabama. All that said, St. Bonaventure guards the heck out of you.
Yeah.
Mark Schmidt's a great coach, but I have continued to say over and over again, I couldn't guard a chair. I like offense. So I'm going to choose LSU here because if LSU guards anybody, those dudes get you buckets. And I don't think the Bonnies are going to be able to score enough with them. I mean, they're some of the most gifted scorers in the country. They take some ridiculous shots, but they do go in.
Guys, what do you think about this one?
I actually, I like defense. I have a lot of respect for LSU and Cam Thomas. You're right, 23 points, 22.9 points per game this season. Obviously, guy's a walking bucket. But the St. Bonaventure squad, 22nd in the nation in defensive rating. LSU is deep. It's not just Cam Thomas. They have 4 guys on their team that have a player efficiency rating north of 15. But I just have a feeling that LSU is going to need to get a stop. And they won't be able to. St. Bonaventure, even against a great offense like LSU, will probably be able to find a stop or two on a possession. So I kind of like them as, I don't know if that's an upset in a 9-8 game, but obviously a great matchup due to the contrasting styles.
Bonnie generates a ton of offense through the mid-range game and on the glass, and that is where LSU struggles to defend. They have had a lot of problems with that this year. So that's one thing out there. Plus, I'll just throw this out there. Obviously, we're not talking about it on the show, but if you take a look at what some of the people in this town have to say about this game, you'd be more inclined to take St. Bonaventure and give them a good, long look in this matchup. So we'll go with the 9 over the 8 upset here, but it's going to be a tight one.
I will say one thing on Bonnie's, too, which is interesting because where they were and they're up and only on New York and the year everybody had, they really played no high major opponents. And again, I'm speaking as a mid-major player. The biggest difference, folks, when you play a high major team is a guy at the same position, a 2-guard like myself that's 6'3", 180 pounds. The guy across from me a lot of times is 6'6", 210.
Yeah.
He runs faster. He jumps higher. He does things physically God-given that I can't do. You can be just as skilled, but you look at somebody physically that's different than you, and I think you may run into that a bit. Bonaventure isn't quite the jump as an A10 team, but that's something to think about as you're thinking about the upsets.
That makes sense.
It's a little different.
That makes sense. All right, let's quickly go through these other games. We got Colorado, Georgetown. I know we talked about that earlier. Do we think that Georgetown is going to get the upset?
Dalen, you go ahead and make the call on that one.
I like Colorado there, guys. But you guys like Georgetown. Go with Georgetown. Go with Georgetown. You already picked it. You got to do it.
Okay. We can move this back.
It was the Corona spot. Let's go.
Okay, what do we think about Florida State versus UNC Greensboro?
FSU, really tough draw for Greensboro. FSU coming off that loss. There were a lot of people that like the Seminoles to make a deep run. They haven't shown the consistency down the stretch to get my vote for a deep run, but enough to win 1, maybe 2 games in this thing.
With you on that. Florida State just going to have too much. As Dalen was talking about, there's those athletes that UNC Greensboro is not going to be able to handle when you got guys that are 6'8", 6'9", with 80-inch wingspans and all that. Leonard Hamilton's defense will come and show up in that matchup.
Yeah, Isaiah Miller is a 2-time player of the year in the Southern Conference. He's outstanding. Wes Miller is a coach folks should know. He will be a high major coach shortly. He's in his late 30s. Outstanding young coach. But in the end, Florida State is just going to be too much for UNCG.
All right, let's move on to the South. We got number 8, North Carolina versus 9, Wisconsin. How do we feel about that matchup?
When you said that, I got it went down my back.
I also am very bothered by how you guys say Colorado. It's Colorado. By the Coloradoans. Have you never heard a person from Colorado say Colorado?
I may know 5 people from Colorado,
Okay,
and I don't think I judge them on their state. Okay.
So it's an A.
Okay, Colorado. I don't even know what game we're talking about now. What's the screen saying? What are we talking about?
North Carolina, Wisconsin. Wisconsin.
It's going to be, I think, North Carolina relies on their bigs entirely. Their guards have to be good. They're young players that have had massive turnover issues. This is going to be another pace issue. Wisconsin, one of the slowest in the country. Carolina's not that fast this year, but they like to play fast. I think Wisconsin is just not going to be able to do enough. They've been really bad the last 5 weeks of the season. Very inconsistent scoring the ball, and I think North Carolina will do just enough to get a bunch of rebounds and turn it over, just not enough because they don't really pressure you on D, but they can get over the hump and get the win.
Guys?
I'm with Dalen there. It's 2 teams heading in opposite directions. Wisconsin's dropped 6 of 8 coming into this game, and ever since that Syracuse loss where UNC at the end of the season looked terrible, they've played some really good basketball. They went out and they blew out Notre Dame. They ended up losing to Florida State in a really tight matchup that came down to the wire. I like UNC in this matchup as well.
Make it 3 for 3. I'm on the Tar Heels here. They have the coaching advantage with Roy Williams. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Wisconsin, if they win, they'll probably dominate the glass, kind of choke off Wisconsin, send them, careening in the opposite direction or on the skid that they've been on, pardon me. One thing Wisconsin doesn't do is hurt themselves. They don't turn the ball over a lot, and that's something that Roy Williams, I think, is going to try and manufacture to get some easy buckets for his team. But I just think, as you pointed out, North Carolina playing well right now. Situationally, these teams are headed in opposite directions. I'll go with the team that's been better as of late, North Carolina, pardon me.
Okay, so we got North Carolina.
UNC, 3-0.
Okay. All right.
That was the one time we were unanimous, and you were like, you know what, guys, we're going to go Wisconsin.
Are you guys sure? All right, next up, we got Florida, 7 seed, versus Virginia Tech. They're a 10 seed. How do we feel about that one? I'll go to you guys first.
Let's see, Florida, Va-Tech. I like this one. This one was one of the harder ones for me to handicap. Va-Tech, 5 of their last 8 games have been canceled due to COVID. Florida has been an inconsistent team throughout the year and missing their best player for most of this year, Keontae Johnson. So I'd probably lean the fact that Va-Tech hasn't played so much recently, and they've lost 2 of those things. I guess
Come up for air. You're getting so emotional.
I guess I lean Florida, but Florida's not an inspiring team. I think Va-Tech is better, Joe, but I'm concerned about the form that they're in and all the games they've lost, all the competition they've lost to stay sharp. So I'll lean Florida, but there's not much confidence behind that, I suppose.
I'm going to let America in on a little secret here. There are games I feel good about on this bracket, and there are games I do not feel good about with this bracket. This is one of the games I don't feel good about. When it comes to Florida, every time I've supported them this year, they have lost. Every time I haven't supported them this year, they have won. So I'm going to go with Virginia Tech, just because I'm tired of Florida. Dalen, I'm sure you've got something better for us.
The winks and nods and quotations that are going on are phenomenal right now from the guys in Vegas. I guess I won't talk about any lines. In terms of this game, it literally hurt Tyler to even talk about it if he was physically affected by it, which I understand. Now, Virginia Tech, all those pauses aren't created the same, folks. What's different about their pauses was a contact tracing issue. So Mike Young, coach of the year in the ACC, was continually telling folks his guys were in the gym all the time. They were able to get in there and continue to work out and keep their conditioning up. That's why they gave UNC everything they could handle in that ACC tournament game they played, which was a good game, and UNC edged it at the end. I like Virginia Tech in this game, partially because of how some of the pieces they have. They got a lot of versatility. Keve Aluma was an all-league player. Tyrese Radford plays way bigger than his size. Justin Mutz, a Delaware State transfer. They got some big bodies inside. They got a lot of versatility. They got some shot makers. There's not one guy in the scouting report that you say, if we take away X, we can win the game, which I think is really important in tournament play. Couple all that with Florida's been just bad recently.
Yeah.
They've been poor in their form. So I think Virginia Tech is a team I'm taking, but it is basically a coin flip. And Florida's been good at times this year,
Yeah.
but they're not right now.
Okay, so that's an upset. We got Virginia Tech. Moving on. Next matchup, Texas Tech versus Utah. Tech is a 6 seed, Utah an 11 seed. How do we feel about that one, Dalen?
Take the under. Are we allowed to say that? I don't know what Joe's going, but that's where my brain went to that right away. These are two of the best defensive teams in the country, and they play a physical brand of basketball. They're going to get up in you, and Texas Tech's not going to let you reverse it. Utah State's going to make every cut an absolute battle. So I really think this is going to be an interesting game. It is for more of a purist than somebody that wants to see some points. So I think in terms of the game itself, I like Texas Tech winning. I think they just have a little more talent in the offensive end. And again, when you go through that Big 12, you were absolutely battle tested. And this is real. The Big 12 and the Big 10, when you don't have to see those teams anymore, and teams haven't seen their defense before, that helps you in a tournament setting. And guys are just excited to get out of the league. Some of those leagues are brutal. You just want to start playing some other people in a different environment. Yeah,
and the Big 12 plays literally everybody twice.
Yep.
So it's tough. Guys, what do you think about this matchup?
All right, so Texas Tech, Utah State. Defense and tempo are the first things that come to mind when you're thinking about the Red Raiders. Dalen made an excellent point. If you're Texas Tech, every single time you take the court, you're staring down someone who's in the top 25. You're facing the Oklahoma States, the Baylors, the best in the business. You can't get away from it.
Right.
At any turn, West Virginia, Oklahoma, who petered down the stretch. Utah State, they struggle on offense, and I see them struggling on offense here.
Yeah, I like Texas Tech as well. I think Mac McClung will, as the top scorer on Texas Tech, kind of be the difference. As Dalen pointed out, scoring is going to be at a premium in this game with the style. We know Texas Tech and Chris Beard want to turn you over. Utah State, not only one of the best defensive teams in the country, but also one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They're just a rugged group, but I do think Tech will have a little bit too much in terms of firepower here. With the defenses being both really, really good, the fact that Tech can score more has me leaning towards the Red Raiders advancing against Utah State.
All right, Red Raiders advance. Now we got Arkansas versus Colgate. We won't go very deep in this one, but I just need to know who you guys think is going to win this one.
Colgate can
Lots
really
of scoring.
Yeah,
Lots
Colgate
of scoring in this one.
Colgate
Scoring
really
will not be at a premium.
But the thing is, I mentioned Colgate didn't play anybody out of conference. They played the same teams in their conference 3 or 4 times. So it's a really weird year in the Patriot League. I think they can score. They got some talented guys. They like pace. But Arkansas, that is a different level of pace and dudes. A lot of points, Arkansas rolls.
You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I love Eric Musselman, especially when we get to March. We saw what he did at Nevada, I believe it was back in 2018. He took the Wolfpack to the Sweet 16, and he's doing the same thing here at Arkansas. He's building a program. This is a fantastic basketball team. They came up just short against a very good LSU team over the weekend. Razorbacks to the side.
Moses Moody is a name that people in the SEC know, and if Arkansas makes a deep run in this tournament, people around the country will know that name. Moody is one of the premier players in all of college basketball, I think, with his game on both ends of the floor there, especially scoring.
And we want Musselman to win, too, though, because he can take his shirt off and celebrate again. I don't know if you remember. I mean, he was ripping shirts off. He's doing, like, backflips. He was nuts.
As long as it's not Huggy Bear taking his shirt off, we're fine.
All right, next up we got Ohio State, Oral Roberts. How do you feel about that one?
I really like Oral Roberts' team and ability to score, but Ohio State can score. I know, I like their team. They can score, but that's a tough matchup for them in terms of teams that can defend them with versatile pieces. Buckeyes.
Okay, you guys agree?
Buckeyes.
Yeah.
I feel
Nothing
like
more to be said there.
One. Okay, let's see what's going on at the bottom of the South region. Illinois, Drexel. How do we feel about that matchup?
Illinois.
All right, we'll move them on.
Fighting Illini advance there, yep.
Obviously. Okay, so Loyola Chicago versus Georgia Tech. How do we feel about that?
We are contractually obligated to talk about Sister Jean at some point, so let's get it in now.
Gotta do it.
Love Sister Jean. She's still doing her thing, and she's going to be they'll be talking about her a lot. I don't like this matchup for them. They turn it over a little bit. That's one of the weaknesses for Loyola Chicago. They can loose with the ball. Georgia Tech, top 10 of the nation in defensive turnover rate, 4th in the nation in points scored off of turnovers, 18 a game. We just saw what they did to Florida State. I think Loyola Chicago will struggle with that, with the changing that 1-3-1. They turn it over a bit. Tech wins.
You guys agree?
I'm with Dalen here. I think Georgia Tech wins this game. I think it's a great matchup. Loyola Chicago, a very good team. Cam Krautwig, and he was kind of a focal point of that team 4 years ago that made that deep run to the Final Four. But Georgia Tech was 5-3 versus top 25 competition. And I think as good as Krautwig is, Moses Wright, the ACC Player of the Year, will be the best player on the floor.
I disagree, but it's not really going to matter because I've already been outruled 2-1. But I will say this. I like a lot of what Loyola Chicago brings to the table because they check boxes of teams that tend to run deep into the tournament. They won their conference. They're number 1 in defensive efficiency. They're one of the best in the country when it comes to effective field goal percentage. But I've been overruled. Georgia Tech's been really solid down the stretch. They winning the ACC was very, very, very beneficial to a lot of people who are on Daily Wager. ESPN 2, 6 p.m. Eastern. Shameless plug as we slide that in there. But Georgia Tech's going to be the side. You guys made the call.
All right, how do we feel about 12th seed Oregon State versus 5 seed Tennessee?
It's a tough one. Oregon State's obviously playing their best basketball. They were a bid stealer. They were shocking to be here. But I do think Tennessee, they are, again, a team that's built around defense. Keon Johnson's going to be a lottery pick next year, so he gives them a little something. He played great in the SEC tournament. I like the Vols, and we'll be a tight game.
Guys?
Yeah, I like the Vols as well. John Fulkerson, will he play? If he does, that just adds to me liking Tennessee. I am contractually obligated by my father, who was a UT grad in 1967, to pick the University of Tennessee here. So shout out to my pops. I'm taking the Vols.
Clean sweep. There is no way Oregon State is going to be able to keep shooting the way that they shot in the Pac-12 tournament. They were 44% from deep for the entire tournament. They shot the lights out against Oregon. Regression is coming. Tennessee can play some defense. I'm with you guys. Clean sweep.
All right, the next matchup, we're actually in the Midwest region. I think I said the South. Oklahoma State versus Liberty. I'm going to say Oklahoma State and just move them on because we don't have that much time. Do you guys agree with that?
I agree. I like Liberty. So ones, if they had a different matchup, I would have liked Liberty, but not in this one.
Yeah, Liberty's a tough team, but Okie State's the play with
Kade Cunningham, best player on the floor.
Okay, how do we feel about West Virginia versus Morehead State?
WVU.
WVU.
Yeah,
Mountain
Huggy Bear.
Mama. That's why I agree with that. Do not tell me to keep singing because I will do it all day. I forget who we said about San Diego State, Syracuse. You guys couldn't agree on that one. Do we want to go with Dalen, San Diego State?
Well,
Choose was our Corona upset.
They want the upset.
You want the upset?
They do.
All right, we got Syracuse moving forward.
Ludicrous.
Clemson,
Absolutely ludicrous. Go ahead.
Clemson versus Rutgers. Who do we have in that matchup? I'm going to say Clemson because I went there for grad school, but, go ahead.
I like Rutgers an upset here. I think Rutgers will guard you. Clemson can really struggle to score at times. They guard you, too. This is really points at a premium again, folks. But I think Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights, win for the first time they're in a tournament in, 30 years.
I don't know how you feel about this one, Joe, but Rutgers kind of scares me. Their one good win against Illinois came all the way back in December, so I'm kind of leaning Clemson here.
I'm the same way. I'm not married to either one in this situation. It's a coin flip for me. So if Dalen likes it, we'll side with him. I will say this: Rutgers at home versus Rutgers on the road. Yes, I am not looking at you as you are getting all worked up that I'd be siding with Dalen versus you. Rutgers at home versus Rutgers on the road. Two very different teams. They won't be playing at home in the tournament here.
All right, we got Rutgers moving on. Houston versus Cleveland State. The 2 seed versus the 15 seed. Who we got now?
Houston.
H-Town.
Got Houston.
Peace up. Oh, wait, that's the wrong place.
Come on now.
I know, that was
Atlanta,
really bad.
ATL's
That was
mad.
really bad.
H-Town's
All
like,
right,
what's
I'm
up?
just going through the iPad to make sure that we have all these matchups because I was kind of missing some of them.
And Christine, don't feel bad because we are all hanging you out to dry by not helping you on the iPad at all throughout this process.
Yes.
It's
You
okay.
are doing great.
I
Don't
haven't
listen
messed
to Dalen.
anything up yet. Some of the matchups might be wrong, but it's fine. Did we say Kansas, Eastern Washington? Yes, we got Kansas going forward.
Oh, no, wait. Eastern Washington was one of our upset
I
selections.
like the Eastern Wall. I can't pick Kansas. Again,
Oh, because of the
contractually
COVID
obligated to
situation.
always pick against Kansas.
All right,
So if you want to
let's go with
excuse
Eastern
me from that.
Washington.
Folks, when you
let's go
play
with
these
an
things,
upset.
try to take emotion out of them. Let's learn this one thing from Tyler. Take the emotion out of it.
We did not do Oregon VCU, did we?
We did not.
No,
All
we
right,
did not.
let's do that one really fast. Who do you guys think?
Dalen, where are you going?
I like VCU's team, but Oregon, I think they'll be the team we saw most of the year, not the one we saw at the end of the Pac-12.
Which is a good thing.
Oregon was fantastic this season. And again, they ran into a couldn't-miss Oregon State Beavers team. They're going to bounce back here.
I'll make it a clean sweep. I like the Ducks here. I think they're just the more talented team. Dana Altman's obviously been great during his time there, and I think they win that one in advance.
Iowa, Grand Canyon. Iowa, the 2 seed, Grand Canyon, the 15 seed.
Shout out to Bryce Drew. Spent a year at ESPN, got a good job. He gets in the tournament. Good job, coach. But I'm going to take Iowa.
All right.
Hawkeyes.
I'm going to take the Hawkeyes, but I will say if there is a 2 seed that gets beaten, I'm looking at Iowa as the one that goes down.
All right, let's go to, we got Michigan moving forward. Move it down. Texas versus Abilene
Tejas.
Christian. Who do we got in that matchup?
Texas.
Yeah.
Texas. Listen, the thing
The
with
eyes of
Texas that
Texas.
people need to realize is that a lot of people sold on them when they came off the COVID pause. They lost 3 straight to Oklahoma, Baylor, and Oklahoma State, and everyone forgot about them. They're getting healthy at the right time. This Texas team is peaking. Don't be surprised if they make a deep run here.
All right, Alabama, Iona. I'm moving
Bama.
Bama. I was going to say, I'm going to move Bama forward just because. Okay.
Although Rick Pitino's got to be scary. If you're Nate Oates, if you're Alabama, Rick Pitino's got to be scary as a 15 seed.
You crazy. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, let's focus on one matchup in the round of 32. We're in the East region right now. How about we look at Texas versus Michigan State?
Texas. I just went on that big rant, so it would be very odd if I picked against them 45 seconds later.
I do agree. I agree with this rant. I'm totally on board with Texas, but I think that's going to be a tough game. Obviously, I think Michigan State should be seated higher.
We got Texas moving forward. Michigan, I'm going to move them forward. I'm going to move Florida State forward, and then
Alabama.
Okay.
Agree with all of that.
You're the one filling out my bracket. If my bracket gets busted, it's on you.
A lot of chalk in that East region.
There's not about to be in mine, I'll tell you that much.
Let's go up. The Zags versus Oklahoma. We got the Zags.
Yeah, Zags.
Creighton, Virginia.
Creighton, we saw it before.
Okay. USC versus Eastern Washington.
Trojans.
Yeah. Evan Mobley, too good. The Cinderella slipper falls off after Eastern Washington beat Kansas.
Oregon versus Iowa.
Iowa, I just don't know if they have anybody who can really deal with Garza, and he's an absolute beast player of the year in the country.
That's real. All right, let's see.
I'll take Iowa's. You see them falling at some point?
Again, I said if a 2 seed goes down in the first round, I'm looking at Iowa. I think Oregon's a good team. I think
they are.
I like Oregon there, but Iowa looks good.
Okay, let's go Texas Tech, Arkansas. Who do we have in that one?
Arkansas going a little more offense.
Arkansas. Huge Musselman fan.
Let's also just remember that Texas Tech are the defending losers.
The defending runner-up.
Defending runner-up.
And there's not a single guy on that team that's on this one. Maybe one, I think. One.
That's very true. That is very true. Virginia Tech versus Ohio State.
Buckeyes.
All right. Let's move on down. We'll go back to UNC later. Illinois versus Georgia Tech.
Illinois,
they've got legit NBA talent. They have been on fire as of late.
Very true. Oklahoma State versus Tennessee.
Okay, State.
I like Oklahoma State.
All right.
Again, Kade Cunningham.
Yep.
Could be the first pick in the draft.
Mountain Mama.
Well, because you took my SDSU out of the way. Took San Diego State. This is easy. I'm moving forward with the Mountaineers.
You would have thought that they would have.
That's going to be a battle. That's an outstanding
they...
defensive team against one of the best offensive teams with WVU and San Diego State. I still have not made my pick yet. I'll figure that out.
Okay, let's go. Rutgers, Houston. Who do you got, guys?
Houston.
I actually have
very
Rutgers.
well balanced.
I have Rutgers. I'm out on Houston, guys. They really can struggle to score sometimes. I know the offensive rebound, but the American was really bad this year, and they beat up on bad teams.
Okay, so Dalen, would that be the 2 seed then that you think has potential to be ousted first? Okay.
Yep.
All right, we didn't do Purdue versus North Texas or Villanova versus Winthrop. Or actually, we did Villanova
Those guys
versus
wanted
Winthrop. We got
Winthrop.
the upset. So Purdue, North Texas, Mean Green.
Purdue, battle-tested in the Big Ten. North Texas has had a nice run as of late, but this is where it comes to a close.
All right. I think we're in the Sweet 16, maybe. Hold on. Let me just see. I don't know how to work this very well. Okay.
You don't need to out yourself. You're killing it. You're good.
Every time I touch it, it doesn't. Okay, there we go. We're good.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we're in the Sweet 16. Sweet 16. We have Illinois versus Oklahoma State.
Illinois.
Yeah, you're not going to hear me say no on Illinois for a long time here.
Yep.
All right. West Virginia, Houston.
I just said Houston. I wouldn't put them in there, so I say WVU.
Yeah. I do think West Virginia is the better team, though. That battle-tested Big 12 schedule.
Clean sweep.
We didn't do Baylor, North Carolina. Who do we have in that
Baylor.
matchup?
Baylor.
Obvious
Young guards
one.
are in trouble.
All right.
Oh, we got to get the winner of Winthrop and
Winthrop,
Purdue.
Purdue.
We need a double-digit seed into the round of 16. So I'm taking Winthrop. Let's go.
But this ain't the one.
There has to be one.
Travion Williams is an absolute beast. Zach Edey's 7'4".
Who is the
Winthrop
one?
ain't seen that. They don't know
one
what that's about.
double-digit seed in the round of 16,
Dalen, I'll make this very simple. We're taking Purdue. He has effectively been eliminated by democracy.
Love democracy, guys.
This bracket is getting chalky.
Wait, did we say
hard to eat.
we're taking Purdue? Let's take
They're
Purdue.
taking Purdue.
Okay.
Christine, they're taking Purdue.
All right. Baylor, Purdue. Baylor. Arkansas, Ohio State.
Ooh, Ohio State.
Ohio. All
I
right.
like Arkansas there.
It's tough.
It was a tough one.
Hey,
You had Arkansas too?
whoever says
They might have been 2-1.
whoever says it first,
Whoever
that's,
says
that's
it first.
who's
All
good.
right,
I'll stop
Christine,
talking
go.
then.
That's how we're doing it right now because we have to fly through these. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. We're going to go forward. All right. Nope. One more.
Dalen,
Nope,
if San
one
Diego
more. We already
State
did
hadn't
this?
been eliminated by us in that early matchup, how deep were you going to take them?
At least to the Sweet 16 and contemplating further.
Wow.
Okay, let's just do this. Who do we think is going to be in the Elite Eight?
Baylor and Illinois are mine.
Gonzaga.
I would take Ohio State over Baylor. I think Ohio State has shown everything. They lost a few games right at the end of the season, tight, tough games, and then they tore through the tournament and just took Illinois to overtime today. Could have won that game. You cannot kill off the Buckeyes. I think that's going to be one of the big surprises. I'm not a big believer in Baylor. They have not been that impressive post-COVID.
Kyle Young needs to come back for Ohio State for them to make that full run. I think he's so important to what they do offensively and defensively. He had the head injury. We'll see what the deal is.
All right, we're good. All right, let's go to our high-speed action connected by Xfinity XFi. In this segment, we're going to highlight players or teams that are known for their high-speed play style. Dalen, let's start us off.
Let's start with my guy, Max Abmas. Now, his name is spelled A-B-M-A-S. It is quite trickery to try to look at that.
you put
But
that
it
in
is
the email.
Abmas, folks, and he gets you buckets. He's the nation's leading scorer for Oral Roberts. As I said before, I like him. I like them as a 15 seed, but not against Ohio State. He gets you buckets for himself and his teammates, but they make almost 12 threes a game, most in the country. They are great in terms of this pick and pop action with Kevin O'Banner. He gets 18 a game. They're the leading duo in terms of scoring, those two in the nation, 42 total points. Fun team to watch. Everybody can shoot. Very entertaining basketball. High speed.
Joe, who's your player?
Moses Moody, freshman guard from Arkansas. He is the highest scoring player on the country's 7th highest scoring team, which also happens to rank 17th in adjusted tempo. The Razorbacks fly up and down the court. They score a ton of points, and Moses Moody is the guy leading the charge. He just scored 28 points for the 4th time this season in that 7-point loss to LSU over the weekend, where he was 8 of 16 from the floor, shooting 50%. The kid is fantastic, and he's a key element on a team where late in these games, you have to have a guy who can get you a bucket. Moody's that guy for Arkansas.
Tyler?
Yeah, and I know a lot of us here have talked about how we think Illinois is going to go deep into this dance, and the guy wearing the mask who runs the show there is Kwamdine Ayo-Dosunmu. And this guy, whatever you need, he will do for your team to win. We saw it today in that overtime matchup, played 41 minutes against Ohio State, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 dimes. He can get a triple-double. He can play above the rim. He's now shooting 38% from behind the arc. He's someone who can create offense for himself, create offense for Kofi Coburn and the others around him. Dosunmu might be one of the most well-rounded players in all of college basketball. He's a star in the making, someone who could be a lottery pick when he takes his talents to the next level. Just one guy who, especially now with the hair and the mask that he's rocking, is going to have one of the best looks and one of the best games in the entire dance.
All right, my guy is, I worked at the Big 12, so I love to talk about
Keep singing
Big
in
12.
the intro. Make it like operatic.
Oh, I should do that for you. I'll do that like at the beginning of everything that I say. I'll just sing just for you. But I got Kade Cunningham because he's an absolute bucket. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He's a freshman, 20.2 points per game, shooting 45.4%, 6.3 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists. But here's the reason I like the guy, okay? He's a great basketball player, 6'8" guard, pretty shifty. But the fact that he stayed with Oklahoma State is really the reason I love this kid. He is a loyal guy. Mike Boynton, the head coach, he actually saw him before he even had played a high school game and offered him, right? He didn't even ask Brad Underwood. So I love the guy. I love this guy so much just because he's a loyal kid, and I love to see it. And he's most likely going to be the #1 draft pick in the NBA draft.
And he's been outstanding in the last 3 weeks since he got back healthy.
Absolute bucket. He's an absolute bucket. All right. I think we're on the final 4. And let's see.
I'd imagine we'll just,
How about
we'll all be in the same opinion
okay,
here.
USC versus Eastern Washington. Who do we got there?
SC.
SC. Evan Mobley, big 7-footer.
Yeah, he'll be a top 3 pick, folks. Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
Make sure to check him out when he's playing.
All right. Oh, wait, we already did that. Okay. Why is there something missing here?
I don't know. I don't have the iPad in front of me.
Is that a play-in game?
Oh, wait. I was going the wrong direction.
There we go. We're moving the right way here.
There we go.
To move a team back. But okay. Let's go Gonzaga versus Creighton. Who do we got there?
Zags.
Zags. USC, Iowa.
I like SC. Like I said, I love Luka Garza, great player, but I don't think they're that great of a team. They have a great player. I would take USC there. I think Evan Mobley would actually be the best player on the floor, and that's saying something how good Garza is.
I will take Iowa. They check a ton of boxes when it comes to running deep in the tournament. Not all the way, but between the offense, the competition they faced throughout the course of the season, the run they've made throughout the course of the year at key times, I'll have Iowa making it to at least this point.
Defensively, Iowa's gotten a lot better in the last 4 weeks, and that's where their knock on them has been so consistent. They are great scoring team offensively, but defensively they have been better. So I think they win this game in a tight one. I think a lack of a point guard for USC is a bit of a problem. Iowa's going to change some defenses at times. You want to be able to play downhill and maintain your aggressiveness. They don't really have that at SC. They have good, decent guards, but overall, I think Iowa wins in a tight one.
All right, cool. Michigan versus Florida State. Michigan versus Florida State. Who do you got in that matchup?
Here we go, boys. This is my first one. I'm going Leonard Hamilton. We're going Florida State, taking down Michigan, and here's why. I don't think no, it's not about ACC, in all honesty, because I have most of those teams losing the first round. It is about Isaiah Livers not being healthy. I think you need all your pieces there. I played with a similar injury. I had the stress injury in my foot my senior year. Had to have surgery, came back, and cracked around the screw they put in my foot. Long story short, I played in games, but I had a boot all week on. I couldn't practice, and you take the boot off and you play. I was horrible. Now, Isaiah Livers is starting from a much higher place, but if he can come back, I don't know if he's going to be the guy they need him to beat a Florida State team that's going to run their ball screen continuity and be able to have size to battle Hunter Dickinson, Balsa Koprivica, also 7-footer, Engholm, another 7-footer. They can run bodies at Dickinson. We've seen when teams do that, he has struggled at times. So I think that'll be a matchup they can win. I'm taking Florida State in an upset.
Guys, you agree?
I'm glad to see it. I'll ride with them. This bracket's gotten too chalky for me. We need some more upsets. So the fact that we have Florida State knocking off Michigan there, I like it.
That's not a double-digit seed, but it works. Texas versus Alabama.
I labored on this one, and I still kind of am. I think I'm going Texas. I'm going with their guards, their upperclassmen to step up and keep playing the way they did the Maui Invitational and the way they did the Big 12 tournament. When they're fully healthy, I think Joe made this point earlier. We know this team is really, really good, especially in the defensive end with their versatility. I think they'll be able to guard Bama. You can guard your yard, keep them in front of you, and make them try to drive and finish at the rim. At times you can win that way. I'm going to take Texas.
All right, you guys agree?
I completely agree. This Texas team is the most undervalued team in the entire tournament because of what happened earlier in the year. They came off that COVID pause. They lost a bunch of games, and everyone checked out on them. Look at how they have made their way and navigated the end of the season. Big games, left and right, and they've shown up and played extremely well. They played from behind. They played from out in front. Every situation you've thrown at them, the Longhorns have been solid. This is a team that's that traditional peaking at the right time. They're going to make a lot of noise in a bracket with a very suspect number one because of the Livers injury.
All right, let's go on and move on to the Final Four in these matchups. Gonzaga versus Iowa. Who do we have?
Zags.
Zags. They're just going to go undefeated all season. Florida State versus Texas.
That's a good matchup.
Yeah,
wow.
This one was tough, too, and this is where I think I'm going to keep riding Texas here. And I do think, again, it comes back to the guard play. And Florida State has been turnover-prone at times. So when they're going to get out, and they don't really necessarily get out and guard you, but they have length and versatility. They can switch a lot of stuff, a lot of that ball screen action I was talking about before, and keep Florida State in the perimeter and contest their threes. Florida State does shoot over 40% from the three-point line. They were best in the ACC, one of the best in the country. But when they don't make threes and they are loose with the ball, like we just saw with Georgia Tech, that's a very beatable team in that regard. So I think Texas gets it in a tight one.
Wow.
I gotta disagree with Dalen. Joe, I'll let you settle it. My sister Polly went to Florida State. She spent 3 years in Tallahassee, so contractually obligated to be a Seminole.
Gut threes, gut box. Let them know.
Yeah, there's only so much more I can possibly say about the Longhorns. You know where I'm at. I'm with Dalen. I like Texas.
Okay, I like Texas too. My mom went to Florida State, as did my brother, but I went to University of Miami, so we're gonna go with Texas here.
Oh, those Thanksgivings must be fun.
Okay, where are we? Let's move on to the Midwest.
Well, we cleared. Okay.
I think we're all in agreement that Syracuse will be in the Final Four.
Yeah, pretty much. Just actually, they're cutting down the nets, guys. They're taking down the nets in Indy. Let's go.
Okay, we got Baylor versus Ohio State.
Go ahead, guys.
I'll be riding with the Buckeyes here. I love what I have seen from them. They had so many question marks coming into the Big Ten tournament based on those losses at the end of the season. Close losses, devastating losses. Some teams pack up shop in that spot and they completely fold the rest of the way out. These guys found a way to rally at every turn. Purdue stormed back against them. They could have folded. They showed everything you needed to see from a fortitude perspective in overtime and beat the Boilermakers. They came all the way back against Illinois and fought him tooth and nail. And a lot of people now believe Illinois might be the best team in the nation. I like the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'll roll with the Buckeyes as well. I think we get an all Big Ten matchup in the Final Four there, Illinois and Ohio State.
Redemption.
I'm still all on the Bears, but it doesn't matter because they already voted. So
But
we're good to
I
go.
can be the tiebreaker.
And you have the pen.
I have the pen.
It's the guards.
We
Those
got
guards are going to
Baylor
get in them a
going
little
forward.
bit. I still believe in Jared Butler, Davion Mitchell, and crew.
I love it. Okay, Illinois versus West Virginia Mountain Mama.
The power of the pen you got. Illinois still, I do think, like I said, I do think Illinois is playing maybe the best basketball, maybe the best in the country. They've got the 1-2 punch we've gone over a bunch of times, Io and Kofi Coburn. I think Illinois wins that game.
You guys agree?
Yeah, they check every box. There's only a handful of teams that check all the boxes that you want when it comes to finding a national champion based on what we've seen in history. Illinois is one of those teams.
All right, we have now arrived to the Final Four. We got Gonzaga, Texas, Baylor, and Illinois. This isn't that exciting. There's 3 1 seeds and a 3 seed, but I mean, kinda. I mean, is this what
do we want to win or we want to just have high numbers? What do we want to do here, folks?
I feel like
whatever you want.
there has to be some sort of excitement, but I mean, this makes sense. It makes sense.
Usually when you get to the Final Four, though, you're not going to have anything outside of one of the top
Chicago.
12 seeds. I would have liked to see a few more upsets earlier.
12.
Yeah, well, a 1, a 2, or a 3. You're going to see one of the top 12 seeds in the tournament overall, not overall one of the top 12 teams when you get down to here. Probably going to come from that group. We do fit there. I wish there was some more upsets earlier in our bracket, but for me, Gonzaga's the best team in the country. Illinois is the hottest team in the country right now. Outside of Gonzaga, they haven't lost. So I see those two matching up in the final.
I'm glad you explained the top 12 teams thing, though, because I was just going along like I understood it. But, Joe, thank you for asking the question. I was like, what are we talking about?
If there's one thing I know working with my man, it's the follow-up is the most important tool in your arsenal. Now, we have Baylor there. I would have had Ohio State beating Illinois in the revenge spot here and moving on to the final. But since it's Baylor, Illinois, I will take the Illini. Fantastic. Everything I've seen from them, there's no way to doubt them. And I will take Texas over Gonzaga on the other side. But I have a feeling I might not be able to get a majority vote on this one.
That's weird.
You will not get a majority vote here. I do think Gonzaga will win that game. I do think they will. What we're going to see, I think, in this tournament is them overwhelm teams offensively, like we saw in the non-conference. Bear in mind, they played UVA. That was non-competitive. Iowa, they won by 10 or 12. That game was never in doubt. The only one that was in question of the high majors, they crushed Kansas, was WVU. So I think they're going to really leave us thinking, man, this team is really special. I think they win that game. I think Illinois wins as well.
All right, we got Illinois versus the Zags. Who is the champion?
I say Gonzaga. I think they pull it off, become that first undefeated.
No.
What do you mean no?
You gave a big speech about how there's too much chalk, and then you just took the #1 team to win the whole thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's
Illinois is not chalk either. I mean, Illinois is not like a massive upset. Gonzaga's the best team, brother Fortenbaugh. Okay, and they're going to do this. They're going to keep that 0 in the L column. Again, we wanted to see more upsets, or at least I did earlier in the dance. But now that we're in the championship game, may the best team win, and the best team is Gonzaga. The defense rests.
I'm taking Illinois. Illinois spike pick. Spike pick. Illinois wins the whole thing.
All right, Larry David standing in for Joe Fortenbaugh now with a spike pick. I'm going to go with Gonzaga. I just said why. I think they're so special, and I think they can do something we have not seen in a generation plus.
The Zags will win it all. They will go undefeated all season. That's like
unbelievable. And I also picked them in 2018, so I'm just going to keep riding the train here. We're just going to talk about 2019. Remember the last one we had? I'm just going to keep going until they do it.
If there was another person that you think could possibly win it all, what team would it be?
You can do it. You can cut down the nets. Yeah.
Another team. Yeah. Who do you think would win it all?
Illinois is a good argument. I thought it'd be Baylor and Gonzaga all year long, but I do think the way Illinois is playing, and it's not just Io DeSumo and Kofi Coburn. Andre Curbelo, the freshman, when Io got hurt and didn't play in the end of the regular season, Curbelo has emerged and really understands his role and what he's capable of doing. He understands its change of pace better, how to get in the lane, hook up his teammates, score himself. Adam Miller has been better. They're getting contributions from all over the court, and then you get the best closer in the building in Io. So I think Illinois and Zags are the two best teams right now.
Okay, guys, do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. That's why I think we had Illinois making it all the way to the championship game there. Could they beat the Zags? Absolutely. With the way that they've been playing, Gonzaga's just been so dominant. And as Dalen pointed out, don't just look at what they did in conference play. Before conference play started, they were beating the brakes off a lot of these teams we're seeing in this tournament. So they seem to be special. Talent, star power, coaching, they have it all. One
of the best arguments when it comes to whether or not you think these teams could win is go ahead and tell me what the problem is with Gonzaga. Go ahead and tell me what's wrong with Illinois. I got all the time in the world, but you're not going to need to fill it because there's very little to nitpick when it comes to those two teams. They have been outstanding this year.
That's absolutely true, but one thing is always interesting. When you go back through the years, so you look at the teams that won a title, there are always those games where you get away by the skin of your teeth.
Yep.
Whether it was Virginia with that Mamadi Diakite shot at the end, that Keon Clark threw that ridiculous pass from 60 feet with the time expiring, Tyus Edney back in UCLA. You can just run through teams that have they're gonna have
Tyus Edney, huh?
They're gonna have tight ones. Oh, sorry, I had to bring up Tyus Edney. That's UCLA, Missouri. My bad, man. 95.
Hey, don't you dare worry
Toby
about
Bailey
that.
was my boy. How many really light-skinned mixed dudes were doing it in the mid-90s? That was my dude.
Wow.
I'm trying to find a jersey everywhere. My dude.
Wow, I love it. All right, that's all we got. Hopefully that helped with you guys' brackets. Make sure that you download the tournament challenge so that you can fill out your brackets. It's an app, and you can do it. And also, on March 19th, we are having a tournament basketball bonanza. I think you're joining us, right, Dalen?
I believe I am,
Okay,
yes.
I'll be there. I think you guys are invited. I'm not exactly sure. I can't say that, but I would love to invite
I like
you.
the crash parties. I'll show up.
See you there.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching Bracketology, connected by Xfinity XFi. We'll see you next year.
Christine's got some pipes.
Yeah, you can blow
why
it.
I sing
blow
all
it.
the
Let it go.
time.
Melt it out. There we go.
Hey. Just kidding.
We were still on, too. I didn't even know.
That's why I was singing. Beautiful.